What
You
would you
won't
do if the
survive
woman
this,
sleeping with
Margaret.
your husband
No.
pushed you into a fire while you were 7 months pregnant? What would you do if your husband watched it happen and did nothing?
Richard,
What would you do
please,
if instead of
help
calling
me.
the police, he had you locked in a psychiatric
Don't
facility
leave us
and
here.
told the world you were crazy?
Please, you have to listen to me.
This is the story of Margaret
I'm
Westbrook,
innocent. I don't
a
belong
woman who
here. You
gave up
can't keep
everything
me.
for love, her career, her
You
friends,
cannot
her
keep the
identity.
child, Margaret. I am
She
taking
signed
him home
documents
today.
without reading them
Read this,
because she
Counselor.
trusted her husband. She ignored the warning signs because she wanted to believe in the fairy tale. And then one night at a charity gala in front of 300 people, his mistress pushed her toward burning coals. Her dress caught fire, her skin burned, and not a single person stepped forward to help. But here is what they did not expect. They did not expect her brother to be a military intelligence officer who had been investigating her husband for 2 years. They did not expect the sisterhood of women who would rise up to save her. And they definitely did not expect Margaret to fight back. What happens next will shock you. It will anger you, and by the end, it will remind you exactly what you are capable of when someone tries to break you. Stay with me until the very end. Trust me, you do not want to miss how this story ends. They say your life flashes before your eyes when you are about to die. But all I saw was my daughter's face, the daughter I had not met yet, the daughter growing inside me as my body pitched toward burning coals, heat rushing up to meet my skin, the smell of smoke filling my lungs. In that split second, I made her a promise. I would survive this. I would burn down everything they built, and I would walk through the ashes with my head held high. But that moment came later. Let me tell you how I got there. Let me tell you about the morning when everything still looked perfect, when I still believed in the life I had built, when I still thought the man sleeping beside me loved me. 36 hours before the fire, I woke up in a bedroom that could have been photographed for a magazine. Cream-colored silk sheets, fresh flowers on the nightstand, morning light filtering through curtains that cost more than most people's monthly rent. I reached across the bed for my husband, Richard. His side was cold. The sheets were smooth, undisturbed. He had not slept there at all. I told myself it did not matter. He worked late. He had early meetings. He was building an empire, and empires required sacrifice. That is what I told myself every morning when I woke up alone. That is what I had been telling myself for 3 years. My hand moved instinctively to my belly, feeling the gentle curve where my daughter was growing. 7 months along now. The baby kicked, and I smiled despite the empty bed beside me. I sat up slowly, the way pregnant women learn to move. Careful, deliberate, always aware of the life you are protecting. On my nightstand sat 2 bottles, prenatal vitamins on the left, anxiety medication on the right. I took one from each bottle and tried not to think about what that said about my life. My therapist once told me something I have never forgotten. She said, pay attention when you are performing happiness instead of feeling it. I should have listened. I should have recognized that I had been performing for years. I found Richard in the kitchen, already dressed in a charcoal gray suit that cost more than my first car. He was scrolling through his phone, coffee untouched beside him. He did not look up when I entered. Good morning, I said. He grunted, still scrolling. I poured myself decaf coffee and sat across from him. The silence stretched between us like a living thing. I used to fill these silences with chatter, with questions about his day, with attempts to connect. I had stopped trying somewhere around year 2 of our marriage. The gala tonight, he finally said, still not looking at me. What are you wearing? I thought the navy dress, the one with the empire waist. His eyes flicked up briefly, assessing me the way he assessed property values and investment returns. Too much, he said. You are pregnant, Margaret. You do not need to draw attention to yourself. I am giving a speech, I reminded him. I am supposed to draw attention to the foundation, not to yourself. There is a difference. I did not argue. I had learned that arguing with Richard was like arguing with a wall. The wall always won, and you just exhausted yourself in the process. I used to argue cases in front of federal judges. I used to stand in courtrooms and fight for my clients with everything I had. Now I was being told which shade of beige was appropriate for a pregnant woman at a charity event. Somewhere, my law school professors were probably crying. Richard set down his phone and looked at me directly for the first time that morning. Victoria will be there tonight, he said, His tone was casual, almost bored. She is a major donor. Be civil. Victoria. Even her name felt like a knife sliding between my ribs. Victoria Sinclair, with her perfect blonde hair and her lifestyle influencer career, and her way of looking at my husband like he already belonged to her. I am always civil, I said quietly. Richard smiled, but it did not reach his eyes. Good. This event matters. The Thornton Foundation matters. I need everything to go smoothly. I nodded because that was what I did. I nodded and smiled and performed happiness, while my heart cracked a little more each day. After breakfast, Richard left for the office. I wandered through our house, this beautiful prison I had helped build. The nursery was upstairs, still unfinished. Richard had chosen the colors without asking me. Sage green and cream, very tasteful, very neutral, very much not what I would have picked. I had wanted soft yellow, sunny and warm. Richard said yellow was too bright, too much. Our daughter would learn early that too much was never acceptable in this family. I was straightening Richard's jacket when I found it. A receipt from Cartier, dated 2 weeks ago. A diamond bracelet, $3,000. My birthday had been last month. I had received a card, not even a personal note, just his assistant's handwriting wishing me many happy returns. I stared at that receipt and felt something cold settle in my chest. The bracelet was not for me. I knew it with absolute certainty. The bracelet was for her. I should have confronted him. I should have demanded answers. But my phone rang before I could think too hard about what I was holding. The gala coordinator confirming my speech time, running through final details. I folded the receipt and put it back in Richard's pocket. I told myself I would deal with it later. After the gala, after I got through one more night of performing happiness. That decision would nearly cost me my life. The rest of the day passed in a blur of preparations, hair and makeup, a final fitting for the navy dress that Richard deemed acceptable, phone calls about catering and seating arrangements, and all the tiny details that go into an event designed to make rich people feel good about giving away money they would never miss. Through it all, my daughter kicked and rolled and reminded me that whatever else was falling apart, she was still there, still growing, still counting on me to protect her. I just did not know yet how much protecting she would need. By 6 o'clock, I was standing in front of my mirror, dressed and ready. The navy dress hid my anxiety medication tremor. My makeup hid the dark circles under my eyes. My smile hid everything else. Richard appeared behind me, adjusting his tie. He met my eyes in the mirror. "You look appropriate," he said. "Not beautiful, not lovely, appropriate." "Thank you," I whispered. "The car is waiting." He turned and walked out without offering his arm. I took one last look at myself in the mirror, at the woman I had become, the woman who accepted appropriate as a compliment, the woman who folded receipts for another woman's jewelry and told herself she would deal with it later. My daughter kicked again, hard enough to make me gasp. "I know," I told her quietly. "I know, baby girl, but we are going to get through this, together." I had no idea how prophetic those words would become. The historic Thornton Hotel rose against the evening sky like a monument to old money and older secrets. Richard's great-grandfather had built it in 1923 with profits from the family coal mines. 3 generations later, the Thorntons had traded coal dust for real estate portfolios. But the building remained, a reminder of where the fortune began. I stepped out of the car and felt the October chill cut through my dress. Richard was already moving toward the entrance, shaking hands, flashing the charming smile he saved for people who mattered. I followed 3 steps behind, the way I had learned to follow. The ballroom took my breath away, even though I had seen it 100 times. Crystal chandeliers caught the light and scattered it like diamonds across the ceiling. White roses overflowed from silver vases. A string quartet played something classical and forgettable in the corner. And in the center of it all, surrounded by a low stone wall, burned the ceremonial fire pit. It was a Thornton tradition, older than the hotel itself. Coal brought from the original family mine kept burning throughout every major event. A symbol, Richard always said, of the fortune that built this city. I had always found it unsettling. All that heat in the middle of a crowded room, all that danger dressed up as heritage. Tonight, the flames seemed higher than usual. Or maybe I was just more aware of them. "Margaret," I turned at the sound of my name and felt genuine relief wash over me. Dr. Caroline Bennett stood near the bar, a glass of sparkling water in her hand. She had been my obstetrician for 6 months now, but somewhere along the way, she had become something closer to a friend. "Carrie," I said, crossing to meet her, "I did not know you would be here. Hospital board obligations." She rolled her eyes good-naturedly. "How are you feeling? Any contractions? Swelling?" "I am fine, just tired." Carrie studied my face with the sharp eyes of someone trained to spot what people tried to hide. "You know, you can tell me anything, right? Doctor-patient privilege and friend privilege." I wanted to tell her everything about the cold bed and the receipt and the way Richard looked at Victoria like she was something precious, while he looked at me like I was something tolerable. But this was not the place. This was not the time. "I am fine," I repeated. "Really?" Carrie did not look convinced, but she let it go. "Just remember, my door is always open. My phone is always on." "Thank you," I said, and I meant it more than she knew. Richard appeared at my elbow, his hand closing around my arm just firmly enough to communicate ownership. "Margaret, time to mingle." He steered me away before I could say goodbye to Carrie. We made the rounds together, Richard charming and confident, me smiling and silent. The perfect political wife, the perfect accessory. We had been married for 4 years. I had given up my law career after 2, when Richard suggested that his wife working made it look like he could not provide for his family. I had agreed because I loved him, because I wanted to make him happy, because I did not yet understand that some people cannot be made happy, they can only be made more powerful. I was thinking about that when I saw her. Victoria Sinclair entered the ballroom like she owned it, red dress that clung to every curve, blonde hair cascading over bare shoulders, confidence radiating from every pore. She was 29 years old, a former model turned lifestyle influencer, and she was looking at my husband like he was already hers. Richard's hand tightened on my arm. "Remember what I said, be civil." Then he released me and walked toward her, leaving me standing alone in a room full of people. I watched him greet her, watched him lean close to whisper something that made her laugh, watched her hand rest briefly on his chest, familiar and possessive. "3 mentions for the mistress, 1 for the wife," I muttered to myself. At this rate, by the next gala, I will be listed under miscellaneous furniture. The dark humor helped. A little. I made my way toward the edge of the room, seeking a quiet corner where I could gather myself before my speech. That is when Victoria found me. She materialized at my side near the fire pit, close enough that I could smell her perfume. Something expensive and floral that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. "Margaret." She said my name like it tasted unpleasant. "You look healthy. Pregnancy really does change a woman's body, does it not?" The insult was wrapped in concern so thin it was transparent. "I have never felt stronger," I replied. My voice was steady even though my heart was pounding. Victoria smiled. It did not reach her eyes. "Strength is so important, especially when everything you think you have can disappear in a moment." Her hand brushed my shoulder, light, almost casual, but I felt the threat beneath it. "Is that what happened to your last 3 relationships?" I asked. "They disappeared?" Something flickered in her eyes, surprise maybe, or anger. She had not expected me to bite back. "Careful, Margaret," she whispered. "You are playing a game you do not understand." Then she turned and walked away, leaving me shaking beside the fire. The rest of the evening blurred together. I gave my speech about the Foundation's work supporting women in crisis. The irony was not lost on me. I smiled and thanked donors and pretended everything was fine while my husband danced with his mistress 3 feet away. Somewhere around 9:30, I found myself alone near the fire pit again. The crowd had thinned around me without my noticing. The music had shifted to something slow and romantic. Richard was still dancing with Victoria. I watched them together. The way he held her, the way he smiled at her, the way he looked at her like she was something precious. He used to look at me like that, before the pregnancy, before the arguments about my career, before everything went wrong in ways I still could not name. My daughter kicked, and I placed both hands on my belly. "I know, baby girl," I whispered. "We are going to get through this." I did not hear Victoria approach. I did not feel her presence until she was right behind me, close enough that her breath stirred my hair. "You should have left when you had the chance," she whispered. And then she pushed me. The world lurched. My breath vanished as my body pitched toward the flames. Heat rushed up to meet me, orange and alive, so close I could feel it searing my skin before I even made contact. My hands flew out instinctively, one protecting my belly, the other clawing for purchase, for anything to stop my fall. My fingers caught the stone edge of the fire pit, rough and hot, and pain shot through my wrist. But the grip held, barely. My shoes slid against the polished floor. My shoulder wrenched as I fought gravity, fought momentum, fought the simple physics of a body in motion. The coals glowed inches from my face. The heat was unbearable. My dress caught a spark, and I smelled singed fabric mixing with smoke. Inside me, my daughter moved. A sharp, frightened kick that sent terror flooding through my veins. A sound escaped my throat. Not quite a scream, more like a broken gasp. The sound of a woman who cannot believe what is happening even as it happens. The music stopped. The ballroom fell silent. I hung there at the edge of disaster, muscles screaming, skin burning, tears streaming down my face. And I waited for someone to help me, waited for someone to pull me back from the flames. No one moved. I twisted my head, searching the crowd desperately. Hundreds of faces stared back at me, shocked, frozen, silent. And then I found Richard. He stood maybe 10 feet away, close enough that I could see his expression clearly, close enough that he could have reached me in 3 steps. He did not move. His face showed no fear for me, no horror at what had almost happened. What I saw there was something else entirely. Annoyance, irritation, the expression of a man watching a problem unfold that he would now have to manage. "Richard," I gasped. "Help me." He cleared his throat. The sound was precise, deliberate. When he spoke, his voice carried across the silent room. "She has always been clumsy. The pregnancy hormones. Someone help her up." The words hit me harder than the heat. Clumsy, hormones, as if I had simply lost my balance, as if his mistress had not just tried to murder me and my unborn child. Behind me, I felt Victoria's shift. She was still there, still close. Her presence was a threat I could not turn to face. I struggled to find my footing, but the heat kept pushing me back. My arm ached where it pressed against the hot stone. Sweat poured down my back. Every muscle in my body trembled with the effort of staying upright. The crowd began to stir. Murmurs rippled outward, but still no one approached. I learned something in that moment that I wish every woman knew. When an abuser has power, the truth does not matter. What matters is who controls the narrative. And standing there at the edge of that fire pit, watching my husband choose his mistress over his pregnant wife, I had no control at all. Security finally moved toward me, but they did not come to help me up. They came to contain me. "Mrs. Thornton," one of them said. His voice was carefully neutral. "Let us get you some air. You seem overwhelmed." "She pushed me," I said. My voice cracked, but I forced the words out. "She tried to kill my baby." Richard sighed. It was a performance, that sigh, patient and long-suffering, designed for the audience watching us. "Maggie, sweetheart," he said, "no one pushed you. You lost your balance. Let us not make a scene." The crowd absorbed his words gratefully. I could see it in their faces, the relief. Here was an explanation that did not require them to act, to intervene, to choose sides, just a clumsy pregnant woman causing a disruption. I opened my mouth to argue, but Victoria spoke first. "Poor thing," she said. Her voice was sweet and concerned. "Pregnancy can be so disorienting." I saw her swaying before she fell. She lied so smoothly, so confidently, as if she had not just tried to murder me. Richard nodded. "That settles it then. Margaret, let security help you to a quiet room. You need to rest." But I was pushed, I insisted. Everyone saw. Someone must have seen. No one met my eyes. Phones had been raised earlier, I remembered. People had been recording. But now those phones were lowered, tucked away. No one wanted evidence of something they had decided not to witness. Security took my arms gently but firmly. They began steering me toward a side door. "No," I said. "No, wait, Richard, please." My husband watched me being led away. His expression had not changed. Still that cool irritation, still that careful management of a situation. Victoria smiled at me from across the room, a small, satisfied curve of her lips that no one else could see. I went with security because I had no choice, because fighting would only prove Richard's narrative right, because my daughter was kicking frantically inside me, and I needed to get somewhere safe, somewhere I could breathe, somewhere I could think. They put me in a small office off the main hallway. One guard stayed by the door, not quite blocking it, but making his presence clear. "Someone will bring you water," he said. "Mr. Thornton asked that you wait here until you feel better." I sat down heavily in a leather chair. My hands were shaking. My arm throbbed where I had burned it catching the stone edge. The skin was red and already starting to blister. I wrapped my arms around my belly and held on. "I am sorry," I whispered to my daughter. "I am so sorry." She kicked again, softer this time, as if she was trying to comfort me. I sat in that office for what felt like hours, but was probably only 30 minutes. Through the door, I could hear the party continuing, music starting up again, laughter resuming, life going on as if nothing had happened. Victoria tried to kill me tonight, and the party just continued. When Dr. Bennett finally found me, I nearly collapsed with relief. "Carrie," I breathed. "Thank God." She took one look at my face, my burned arm, my shaking hands, and her expression hardened into something fierce. "We are going to the hospital," she said. "Now." Richard said I should wait. I do not care what Richard said. She helped me stand, her grip gentle but insistent. "You need medical attention, and I am documenting everything. Burns, stress levels, all of it. She will say I am overreacting," I said. "Victoria, she will say I am hysterical." Carrie met my eyes. "Let her. My medical records will tell a different story." She led me out through a service entrance, avoiding the ballroom entirely. The October air hit my face like salvation. I took deep breaths of it, letting the cold wash away the smell of smoke and fear. Carrie drove me to the hospital herself. She did not ask questions during the ride. She just let me sit in silence, processing, trying to make sense of what had happened. Because here is what I could not wrap my mind around. My husband had watched his pregnant wife nearly fall into a fire. He had heard me say I was pushed, and he had chosen to believe his mistress instead. No, not believe. He had chosen to perform belief, to publicly align himself with Victoria rather than with me. Why? What did she have on him? What was I missing? The answer to that question would come later, and when it did, it would destroy everything I thought I knew about my life. But in that moment, riding to the hospital with my only ally, I did not yet know the full scope of the trap I was caught in. I only knew that something fundamental had shifted, and that whatever came next, I could not face it alone. The emergency room was bright and cold and blessedly impersonal. No one here cared about the Thornton name or the charity gala or the performance I had been forced to give. They just saw a pregnant woman with burns and stress symptoms who needed treatment. Dr. Bennett took charge immediately. She ordered tests, examined my arm, monitored the baby with an urgency that told me she was taking this seriously even if no one else would. "Second-degree burns," she announced, cleaning and bandaging my arm. "You caught yourself hard enough to avoid worse, but this is going to hurt for a while." "It already hurts," I said. She looked at me with those sharp eyes. "I am not just talking about your arm, Maggie." I did not have an answer for that. The baby seemed fine, thankfully. Stressed but stable. Strong heartbeat. No signs of distress beyond what you would expect from a mother who had nearly been burned alive. "I am admitting you overnight," Carrie said, "and I am documenting everything. This burn did not come from a simple fall. The pattern is consistent with defensive positioning." "You believe me," I said. It was not quite a question. "I saw how you looked when security brought you to that room. I saw the fear in your eyes. That was not the face of someone who tripped because of hormones." She pushed me. Victoria pushed me. "I know," Carrie said quietly, "and when the time comes, my records will support that." A nurse appeared in the doorway. "Mrs. Thornton, there is a phone call for you, someone named Tom?" "My brother." Relief flooded through me. "Yes, I will take it." The nurse handed me a phone and stepped away to give me privacy. Tom's voice came through the line, tight with barely controlled fear. "Maggie, thank God. Are you okay? I just got your message." "I am at the hospital," I said. "Something happened at the gala tonight." "What happened?" I told him everything, the push, Richard's reaction, the gaslighting, the way no one had stepped forward to help me. Tom was silent for a long moment when I finished. Then he said something that changed everything. Maggie, I need you to listen to me. I am coming home early. Something has not sat right about Richard for a long time, and I have been looking into him. We need to talk. Looking into him, I repeated. What do you mean? Not over the phone. Just trust me. Do not go back to that house. Stay at the hospital tonight, and I will be there as soon as I can. Tom, she tried to kill me, I said. The words felt surreal coming out of my mouth. Victoria tried to kill me and my baby. I know, he said. His voice was cold with rage. And I promise you, she is going to regret it. Just stay safe until I get there. Can you do that? Yes, I said. I can do that. I can do. After I hung up, I sat in the hospital bed and let myself feel something I had not felt in years. Hope. I had an ally. Dr. Bennett was documenting everything. My brother was coming. Maybe, just maybe, I could find a way out of this nightmare. An hour later, a nurse knocked gently on my door. Mrs. Thornton, a guest at the gala sent something for you. She said you might need it. The nurse handed me an envelope. Inside was a phone number and a handwritten note. I recorded everything. Call me. A friend. My heart stuttered. Someone had seen. Someone had recorded Victoria pushing me. I stared at that note like it was a lifeline, because that is exactly what it was. I had evidence now. A witness. A doctor documenting my injuries. A brother who believed me. For the first time since the push, I felt like I might actually survive this. Do you believe in instincts? That feeling in your gut that tells you when something is wrong, even when everything looks fine on the surface? I have learned to trust those instincts. I wish I had learned sooner. Because looking back, I realized that something felt too easy about that night at the hospital. Too convenient. I should have known that Victoria and Richard would not let me recover quietly. I should have known they would strike back. But I was exhausted and burned and pregnant and scared. So when the hope came, I grabbed it with both hands. And that is exactly what they were counting on. I fell asleep holding that note from my anonymous witness. I dreamed of fire and silence and a crowd that watched without moving. The nightmare woke me at 2 a.m. I lay in the dark hospital room, one hand on my belly, and made myself a promise. Never again, I whispered. I will never be that helpless again. My daughter kicked in response. That is right, baby girl, I said. We are going to fight, both of us, together. I did not know yet how hard that fight would be, or how much I would have to lose before I could win. But I knew I was not going to give up. And sometimes that is where survival begins. I woke to chaos. Richard stood at the foot of my hospital bed, dressed immaculately in a navy suit, his expression a careful mask of concern. But his eyes were cold, calculating. The eyes of a man executing a plan. Beside him stood a woman I did not recognize. 50s, gray hair pulled back severely, an expensive briefcase in her hand. She had the look of a lawyer, the expensive kind. Maggie, Richard said. His voice was soft, solicitous, designed for the nurses who might be listening. We need to talk about what happened last night. I sat up slowly, pulling the blanket higher as if it could protect me. You mean when your mistress tried to murder me? Richard sighed, that patient sigh I had learned to dread. I mean when you had a psychotic episode and endangered our child. The words hit me like a physical blow. Psychotic episode? The woman stepped forward. Mrs. Thornton, I am Patricia Hartwell, attorney for the Thornton family. Given your erratic behavior last night and the danger you posed to yourself and your unborn child, we are requesting an emergency psychiatric evaluation. She placed a document on my bed. Official looking, full of legal language that blurred before my eyes. What is this? I asked. My voice was shaking. A petition for temporary custody of the unborn child and psychiatric hold for the mother, Patricia said calmly. Given the circumstances, the court has granted an emergency hearing. I cannot, I started. It is for your own good, Richard interrupted. And the baby's safety. You nearly fell into a fire last night, Margaret. You could have killed our daughter. Because Victoria pushed me, I shouted. My voice cracked. Everyone saw. No one saw that, Richard said quietly. They saw a pregnant woman lose her balance and nearly fall. They saw her husband try to help. They saw his pregnant wife accuse an innocent guest of assault. He leaned closer. His voice dropped to a whisper meant only for me. Who do you think they are going to believe, Margaret? A hysterical pregnant woman? Or me? The door opened before I could respond. A hospital administrator entered, his expression apologetic but firm. Dr. Bennett, he said, and I realized Carrie had been standing in the corner the whole time, her face pale with fury. We have reviewed the situation. Mrs. Thornton will be transferred to our psychiatric wing for evaluation. Absolutely not, Carrie said. She is my patient. She is in labor precaution. She has burns that need monitoring. I will not authorize this. This is not a request, doctor. The administrator glanced at Richard. Mr. Thornton is on our board. The decision has been made. I watched it happen. Watched my doctor fight for me and lose. Watched the administrator avoid my eyes. Watched Richard stand there with his mask of concern while his lawyer prepared to have me committed. Richard, I said, please. Whatever I did wrong, I will fix it. Just do not do this. He looked at me then, really looked. And for just a moment, the mask slipped. What he showed me was not anger or even hatred. It was indifference, complete and total indifference to my fear, my pain, my pleading. This is for the best, he said. You will understand eventually. They wheeled me out of Dr. Bennett's care 45 minutes later. I screamed for help as they pushed me through the halls. No one came. No one intervened. Richard walked beside my bed, playing the concerned husband. Victoria was nowhere in sight, but I could feel her presence somehow. This had her fingerprints all over it. As they loaded me into an ambulance, I caught one last glimpse of Carrie standing in the hospital entrance. She was on her phone, talking urgently to someone. She raised her hand in a gesture that might have been a wave or might have been a promise. I held on to that image during the ride to wherever they were taking me. I held on to it like a lifeline, because if Dr. Bennett was still fighting for me, then maybe all was not lost. Maybe. The Pinehurst Center for Mental Wellness was a lie wrapped in expensive landscaping. From the outside, it looked like a spa retreat. Manicured lawns, a fountain in the circular driveway, windows that sparkled in the morning sun. The kind of place wealthy people sent their elderly parents when they wanted to forget about them in comfort. But I was not elderly. I was not here for rest. And the moment those doors closed behind me, I understood exactly what this place really was. A prison with thread count sheets. They took everything from me in stages, each loss carefully designed to strip away another layer of my identity. First, my phone. Personal effects, they said, for safekeeping. Then my clothes, replaced with soft gray scrubs that made me look like what they wanted me to be. A patient, a problem, a woman who had lost her grip on reality. They let me keep my wedding ring. I think that was Richard's idea, a reminder of what I had lost, a symbol of the cage I had built around myself with my own hands. The room they put me in was comfortable enough if you did not look too closely. Soft bed with corners that could not be used as weapons, windows that did not open, a bathroom door that did not lock. Everything designed for someone who could not be trusted with sharp edges or privacy. I sat on that bed and wrapped my arms around my belly, feeling my daughter move inside me. I am so sorry, I whispered to her. I am so sorry I let this happen. She kicked in response, hard, insistent, as if she was telling me to stop apologizing and start fighting. But how do you fight when they have taken everything? How do you resist when the very act of resistance proves their narrative? The more I protested, the more unstable I appeared. The more I insisted on the truth, the more they nodded sympathetically and adjusted my medication. I learned something in that place that I will never forget. The most dangerous prisons are not the ones with bars on the windows. They are the ones where everyone smiles and tells you they are helping you while they slowly erase who you are. The doctors came on my second day. 2 of them. A man in his 50s with kind eyes and a woman about my age who took notes without ever looking at me. Margaret, the man said. He used my first name like we were friends. I am Dr. Harrison. I am here to help you. I do not need help, I said. I need to leave. My husband had me committed illegally. Dr. Harrison nodded. That sympathetic nod I was learning to hate. Can you tell me what happened at the gala? I told him. Everything, the push, Victoria's whispered threat, Richard's betrayal, the way no one had helped me, the way I had been gaslit in front of hundreds of people. He listened. He nodded, he made notes, And then he said the words that made me understand just how trapped I was. Margaret, he said gently, your husband tells us you have been under tremendous stress. The pregnancy, the pressure of public life, the anxiety you have been treating for years. Sometimes, under that kind of pressure, our minds can play tricks on us. I stared at him. She pushed me. I have burns on my arm. You caught yourself when you lost your balance, he corrected. The burns are consistent with grabbing a hot surface to stop a fall. They had an answer for everything. Every piece of evidence I offered, they reframed. Every truth I told, they twisted. And the worst part? Part of me almost believed them. Part of me wondered if I had imagined it. If the stress really had broken something in my mind. If Richard was right and I was losing my grip on reality. That is what gaslighting does. It makes you doubt your own memories, your own perceptions, your own sanity. My daughter kicked again. Harder this time. Almost painful. And I remembered Victoria's breath on my neck, her whispered words, the force of her hand on my shoulder, the heat rushing up to meet my face. That was real. I knew it was real, and I would not let them convince me otherwise. I understand you do not believe me, I told Dr. Harrison, but I am telling you the truth. And someday you are going to realize that you helped a man imprison his innocent wife. I hope you can live with that. His expression flickered. Just for a moment. Then the professional mask returned. We are going to start you on a mild sedative, he said, just to help you rest. The stress is not good for the baby. They drugged me that night. Not enough to knock me out, just enough to make everything soft and blurry. I lay in my comfortable prison bed and watched the ceiling swim above me. 72 hours. That was what the law allowed. 72 hours of evaluation before they had to release me or get a court order for longer commitment. I just had to survive 72 hours. But Richard had money. Richard had connections. Richard had an entire system built to do exactly what he wanted. And I had nothing. No phone, no allies, no way to reach the outside world. I fell asleep with my hands on my belly, protecting my daughter the only way I still could. I dreamed of fire. The next morning brought a visitor I had not expected. I was sitting in the common room pretending to read a magazine when I felt someone sit down beside me. The smell hit me first. Expensive perfume, floral and suffocating. Victoria, she looked perfect, of course. Designer jeans and a silk blouse. Hair cascading over her shoulders like a shampoo commercial. The kind of effortless beauty that takes 3 hours and $1,000 to achieve. I wanted to see how you were settling in, she said. Her voice was warm and concerned, pitched for anyone who might be listening. Nice room, very comfortable. What are you doing here? I asked. My voice was flat, dull. The medication made it hard to feel anything strongly. Just visiting a friend. Victoria smiled, that small, satisfied curve of her lips. I have always cared about your well-being, Margaret. She leaned closer. Her voice dropped to a whisper meant only for me. I wanted to see the look on your face when you realized it was over. It is not over, I said. Victoria laughed softly. Of course it is. Richard and I have been planning this for years. Did you really think we would leave anything to chance? She reached into her purse and pulled out a folder. Inside were documents, financial records. My signature on pages I did not remember signing. Every document you signed as Richard's supportive wife was designed for this moment, Victoria explained. The shell companies, the offshore accounts, the foundation transfers. It is all in your name, Margaret. I stared at the papers, my signature, over and over again, on documents I had signed without reading because Richard had asked me to, because I trusted him, because I loved him. You set me up, I breathed. We set you up, Victoria corrected. Richard and I, together. You were the perfect mark, Margaret. A smart woman who wanted so badly to believe she was loved that she stopped thinking. She tucked the folder back into her purse. If you try to talk, if you try to expose us, these documents prove you are the criminal. You go to prison, you lose your baby, you lose everything. And if I stay quiet, then you just lose everything. Victoria stood. Either way, I win. She paused at the door, looking back at me with something that might have been pity. I almost feel sorry for you, she said. You really did love him, did you not? That must make this so much harder. Then she was gone. I sat in that common room for a long time after she left. The magazine lay forgotten in my lap. The television droned in the background. Other patients shuffled past, lost in their own medicated hazes, and I let the truth sink in. My entire marriage had been a con. Every moment of tenderness, every promise of forever, every time Richard had looked at me and made me feel loved, it had all been part of a plan to use me and discard me. I had given up my career for a man who saw me as nothing more than a convenient scapegoat. I had isolated myself from friends and family because he preferred me dependent. I had signed away my freedom document by document, trusting blindly because I believed love meant trust. How many women have made that same mistake? How many of us have ignored the warning signs because we wanted so badly to believe in the fairy tale? My daughter kicked, not gently this time, a strong, insistent movement that seemed to say, "Wake up, Mom, we are not done yet." She was right. Victoria thought she had won. Richard thought he had won. They thought I was broken, defeated, ready to disappear quietly into whatever hole they had dug for me. But they had made one mistake. They had underestimated what a mother will do to protect her child. I did not know how yet. I did not know when. But sitting in that common room, drugged and imprisoned and surrounded by people who thought I was crazy, I made myself a promise. I would get out of here. I would prove what they had done. I would burn down every lie they had built. And I would walk away with my daughter in my arms and my head held high. Victoria thought she had won. She had no idea what she had started. 73 hours and 14 minutes. That was how long I was held in Pinehurst before salvation walked through the door. Helen Patricia Moore did not knock. She did not ask permission. She simply appeared in the doorway of my room like an avenging angel in sensible shoes. And the expression on her face made the orderly behind her take 2 steps back. "Get up," she said. "We are leaving. Now." I stared at her. I had not seen Helen in over a year. She had been my mother's best friend for 3 decades, a family court judge who had retired after my mother's death. The last time we spoke, she had told me she was worried about my marriage. I should have listened. "Helen," I breathed. "How did you find me? Your doctor friend called me." Helen was already moving, gathering the few things I'd been allowed to keep. "She has been fighting for you since the moment they took you. Carrie Bennett does not give up easily." Dr. Harrison appeared in the doorway, his face tight with professional concern. "Mrs. Moore, I cannot allow you to remove a patient without proper discharge procedures. Mrs. Thornton is here for evaluation and—" Helen turned to face him. The look she gave him was the same look I imagined she had given defendants who thought they could lie to her in open court. "Dr. Harrison," she said calmly, "I have a court order for immediate release." She handed him a folder. "I also have documentation of every legal violation committed by this facility in the past 72 hours. She began counting on her fingers. Detention without proper judicial review, failure to notify next of kin, administration of medication without informed consent, denial of access to legal counsel, and most importantly, a conflict of interest so egregious that I am genuinely curious how you thought no one would notice." "What conflict of interest?" Dr. Harrison asked. His voice had lost some of its professional warmth. Helen smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "This facility is owned by Pemberton Medical Holdings. The primary investor in Pemberton Medical Holdings is the Thornton Family Trust, the same trust controlled by Richard Thornton, whose wife you are currently holding against her will." She stepped closer to Dr. Harrison. "You imprisoned a woman at the request of her husband in a facility that her husband financially controls. That is not medicine, Dr. Harrison. That is kidnapping with a prescription pad." Dr. Harrison's face went pale. "I was not aware of the ownership structure," he started. "Then you are either incompetent or lying," Helen interrupted. "Either way, this woman is leaving with me. You can cooperate, or you can explain to the medical board why your license should be reviewed. Your choice." 15 minutes later, I was in Helen's car, wearing clothes she had brought for me, breathing free air for the first time in 3 days. "Where are we going?" I asked. My voice sounded strange to my own ears, rough and unused. "Somewhere safe," Helen said. She pulled out of the Pinehurst parking lot without looking back. "Your friends have been busy while you were locked up, Margaret. You are not as alone as Richard wanted you to believe." The safe house was a modest home in a neighborhood I did not recognize. Working class, well-maintained, the kind of place where people minded their own business and did not ask questions about visitors who arrived after dark. Helen pulled into the garage and waited for the door to close behind us before letting me out. Inside, I found them waiting, the women who would save my life. Dr. Carrie Bennett sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by files and medical records. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes. Coffee cup clutched in hands that trembled slightly from too much caffeine and not enough sleep. Jessica Lynn Parker stood by the window, a tablet in her hands and a look on her face I remembered from law school. The look of a woman building a case that she intended to win. And beside them sat a young woman I did not recognize. Late 20s, nervous, clutching a phone like a lifeline. Margaret. Jessica crossed the room and wrapped her arms around me. Thank God you are okay. We have been fighting for you every minute. I hugged her back, feeling tears spill down my cheeks. After 3 days of being told I was crazy, of being drugged and isolated and gaslit, human contact felt like oxygen. How did you all find each other? I asked when I could speak again. How did you know what was happening? Carrie answered first. After they took you from my care, I started making calls. I knew something was wrong. The way Richard showed up with that attorney, the way the administrator caved so quickly, it did not feel like medicine. It felt like an ambush. I found Jessica through the state bar registry, she continued. I remembered you mentioning a law school friend who became a prosecutor. Jessica had some interesting information to share. Jessica picked up the thread. My office received an anonymous tip about Thornton Development almost a year ago. Suspected securities fraud, money laundering, the whole works. We have been building a case quietly ever since. You have been investigating Richard, I said. We have been investigating his company, Jessica corrected. But the evidence kept pointing to one name on all the documents. Your name, Margaret. She handed me a file. Richard has been setting you up for years. Every paper you signed, every board position you held, every account with your name on it, he designed it all to make you look like the mastermind while he stayed invisible. I flipped through these pages. Financial statements, shell company registrations, foundation disbursements, all bearing my signature. I thought I was supporting his work, I said quietly. He told me it was just paperwork, that it was easier if both of us could sign things. That is how they do it, Helen said. They use your trust against you. They count on you not reading the fine print because you believe love does not require fine print. The young woman at the table finally spoke. I can help prove what really happened, she said. At the gala, I mean. I looked at her properly for the first time. I am Amanda Cole, she continued. I was working as a server that night. I saw everything. You were there, I breathed. Amanda nodded. I was refilling champagne glasses near the fire pit when Victoria Sinclair approached you. I saw her lean in and whisper something. I saw her push you. She held up her phone. And I recorded it. The whole thing, her approaching you, her hand on your shoulder. You falling, I have it all. The room seemed to spin around me. Evidence, real evidence. Not my word against theirs, but actual footage of what Victoria had done. Why, I asked? Why did you risk recording it? Amanda's expression hardened. Because I have seen women like her before. Beautiful, confident, untouchable. The kind of woman who thinks the rules do not apply to her. The kind who hurts people and smiles while she does it. She looked down at her phone. My sister dated a man like that once. Charming on the outside, monster underneath. She believed him when he said no one would believe her. She did not have proof. Amanda met my eyes. I was not going to let that happen to you. I crossed the room and hugged at her. This stranger who had risked her job, maybe her safety, to help a woman she did not know. Thank you, I whispered. Thank you. Jessica cleared her throat. We have a strong case, she said, the video of the push, medical records of your injuries, documentation of the illegal commitment, evidence of the financial fraud and Richard's attempts to frame you. She paused. But we need you to be willing to go public with everything. We need you to testify. I looked around the room at these women. Helen, who had burned through decades of professional relationships to rescue me. Carrie, who had defied her hospital administration and risked her career. Jessica, who had brought federal resources to bear on my behalf. Amanda, who had stood up for a stranger because she remembered her sister's pain. This was what sisterhood looked like. Not hashtags and slogans, but women showing up for each other when it mattered. Women risking their own comfort, their own security, their own reputations to help another woman survive. Your mother would be so proud of you, Helen said softly. She always said you were a fighter. You just forgot for a while. I did not forget, I replied. I just loved the wrong person more than I loved myself. Helen reached out and took my hand. That ends tonight. I squeezed her fingers and felt something shift inside me. Something that had been sleeping for a very long time. Buried under years of being quiet and compliant and appropriate, I felt myself wake up. What do you need me to do? I asked. Jessica smiled. It was the smile of a woman who knew she was about to win. Everything, she said. We need you to do everything. Hope is a dangerous thing. It makes you vulnerable. It makes you believe that maybe, just maybe, things will work out, that the good guys will win and the bad guys will lose and justice will prevail. I should have known better. I should have remembered that Richard had been planning this for years. That Victoria was smarter than she looked. That people with money and power do not give up easily when cornered. But I was tired. I was pregnant. I was surrounded by women who believed in me for the first time in longer than I could remember. So I let myself hope, and hope nearly destroyed me. The first catastrophe came 18 hours after my rescue. I woke to the sound of Jessica's voice, sharp and urgent. She was on the phone, pacing the length of the safe house living room, her face ashen in the early morning light. When she hung up, she did not look at me for a long moment. What happened? I asked. I already knew from her expression that something had gone terribly wrong. Jessica took a breath. Amanda Cole was found dead this morning, apparent suicide. The words did not make sense at first. I heard them, but my brain refused to process them. No, I said, no, that is not possible. She was here last night. She was fine. She was going to testify. Jessica's voice was flat, controlled. The voice of a prosecutor who had delivered bad news before. Her body was found in her apartment at 6 this morning. Apparent overdose. No signs of forced entry. She paused. Her phone is missing. All the recordings are gone. I sat down heavily. My daughter kicked, and I pressed both hands against my belly, trying to ground myself in something real. They killed her, I whispered. Richard and Victoria. They killed her. We cannot prove that, Jessica said carefully. The scene looks like a suicide. The police are treating it as a suicide, but we know, I insisted. We know she would not have killed herself. She was brave. She was determined. She wanted to help. Carrie spoke from the doorway. Her face was tight with controlled anger. They are cleaning up loose ends, she said. Richard knows someone is on to him. He is eliminating anyone who can hurt him. The evidence, I said, the recording. It is gone? Jessica nodded. Everything on her phone, wiped clean. I thought about Amanda, her nervous determination, her story about her sister, the way she had hugged me back when I thanked her. She had died trying to help me, a woman she did not even know, and Richard had murdered her as casually as he would swat a fly. Something changed in me in that moment. The fear did not disappear exactly, but it hardened into something else, something colder, something that did not flinch. What do we do now? I asked. My voice sounded different to my own ears. Steadier, more dangerous. We keep fighting, Helen said, but we need to be smarter, more careful. We need to move faster, Jessica added, before they eliminate any more witnesses, before Richard realizes how much we actually have. Her phone buzzed. She looked at the screen and went pale. Turn on the news, she said. The second catastrophe hit like a physical blow. My face filled the television screen. Not a flattering photo. A mugshot that must have been taken at Pinehurst. I looked wild-eyed and disheveled. Exactly like the mentally unstable criminal they wanted the world to see. Margaret Thornton, the anchor said. Her voice was professionally somber. Wife of prominent developer Richard Thornton, is now the subject of a federal investigation into securities fraud. Sources close to the investigation say she has been the mastermind behind a complex money laundering operation for years, using her position on multiple charitable boards to funnel millions of dollars into offshore accounts. The screen cut to Richard. He stood outside our home looking appropriately devastated, concerned, Betrayed. I am shocked and heartbroken, he said. His voice trembled with practiced emotion. I trusted my wife completely. I had no idea she was capable of this kind of deception. My only concern now is for our unborn child. Back to the anchor. Richard Thornton has filed for emergency divorce and full custody of his unborn daughter, citing his wife's mental instability and criminal involvement. Sources say Margaret Thornton may have been running this operation since before their marriage, targeting wealthy men as marks in an elaborate con scheme. Jessica muted the television. He went public, she said. He released your name to the press as the primary suspect and positioned himself as the victim. I stared at the screen, at my own face looking back at me, at the chyron beneath it that read, socialite accused of massive fraud. In one strategic move, Richard had destroyed my reputation, my credibility, any sympathy I might have garnered from the public. He had turned me from victim into villain in the time it took to deliver a press release. Can we counter this? Helen asked. Release our own information? Jessica shook her head grimly. If we go public now, we look like we are making excuses. The narrative is already set. Wealthy wife caught stealing, tries to blame husband. So what do? I asked. We build our case. Jessica's jaw was tight. We get the federal investigators to look at the real evidence. We prove that Richard is the criminal and you're the victim. How long will that take? Weeks, maybe months. I do not have weeks, I said. The baby is due in 5 weeks. If Richard has custody when she is born. I could not finish the sentence. The thought was too horrifying. They will take her, Carrie said quietly. She spoke the words I could not. Under the current custody order, Richard has visitation rights the moment she is born, if you are still under criminal suspicion. They will take my daughter. The third catastrophe came that night. I was lying in bed, unable to sleep, when the pain started. A cramping sensation low in my belly that I tried to ignore at first. Stress, I told myself. Fear. Everything I had been through in the past week. But the cramps did not stop. They grew stronger, more regular. And then my water broke. Carrie, I screamed, something is wrong. She was at my side in seconds, her medical training kicking in. How far apart are the contractions, she asked. I do not know. 5 minutes maybe, but it is too early. I still have 5 weeks. Carrie's face was calm, but I could see the concern in her eyes. Babies come when they want to come, she said. We need to get you to the hospital. Now, the drive was a blur of pain and terror. Contractions ripped through my body every few minutes. Helen drove while Carrie sat in the back with me, monitoring my vitals, keeping me focused. You are going to be okay, Carrie kept saying. The baby is going to be okay. But all I could think about was Richard. The custody order, the cameras that would be waiting at the hospital because someone would tip off the press. He is going to take her, I gasped between contractions. The moment she is born, he is going to take my baby. No, Helen said from the front seat. Her voice was fierce. We are not going to let that happen. How? I demanded. He has a court order. He has the law on his side. Then we will find a way around it. Helen met my eyes in the rearview mirror. Your mother did not raise a quitter, Margaret. And I did not spend 30 years on the bench to let some entitled sociopath steal a child from her mother. Another contraction hit. I screamed, gripping Carrie's hand so hard I thought I might break her fingers. Just breathe, Carrie instructed. Focus on the baby. Everything else we handle after. But how could I focus when I knew what was waiting? Richard with his lawyers. Victoria with her smug satisfaction. A system that had already been rigged against me. They wheeled me into the delivery room at 11:47. The contractions were 2 minutes apart now. The pain was blinding. But worse than the physical agony was the knowledge that every push brought me closer to a moment I dreaded. The moment my daughter entered a world where her father was already waiting to take her away. Push, Carrie commanded. She had scrubbed in herself, refusing to let anyone else deliver my baby. I pushed, through the fear, through the pain, through the crushing weight of everything they had done to destroy me. I pushed because my daughter was coming, whether I was ready or not. I pushed because she was the only thing left that mattered. And at 12:23 in the morning, Eleanor Grace Westbrook took her first breath and screamed at the world. They laid her on my chest, this tiny, perfect person, red-faced and furious and absolutely beautiful. "Hello, baby girl," I whispered through my tears. "I have been waiting for you." She opened her eyes. They were blue, the way all newborns' eyes are blue. But I could already see myself in her face. My nose, my stubborn chin. "I am going to protect you," I promised her. "No matter what, no matter who tries to stop me, I am going to keep you safe." Carrie was cleaning up, giving us a moment alone. And that is when the door burst open. Richard stood in the doorway. Behind him were two police officers and a man in a suit I recognized as his attorney. "I have a court order," Richard announced. He was smiling. That cold, triumphant smile I had learned to fear. "I am exercising my custody rights." He stepped toward the bed. "Toward my daughter. Give her to me," he said. No, the word came from somewhere deep inside me. A place I did not know existed until that moment. I held Eleanor tighter against my chest. "She just came into this world," I said. My voice was shaking, but I did not care. "You are not taking her from me. Not now, not ever." Richard's smile faltered. "Margaret, be reasonable. You are facing federal charges. You are clearly unstable." "The court has already decided." "The court decided based on lies," I shot back. "Lies you told. Evidence you fabricated. A wife you tried to murder." "I am calling security," Carrie announced. She moved toward the phone. One of the police officers stepped forward. "Ma'am, we have a valid court order. Mr. Thornton has legal custody rights. And I have a mother who just gave birth," Carrie snapped. "There are medical protocols that have to be followed. You cannot just walk into a delivery room and take a newborn from her mother." She grabbed the phone and started dialing. "I need security in delivery room 4. Now. And someone call Judge Patterson. Tell her we have a custody situation that requires immediate review." Richard's expression darkened. "You cannot stop this." "Watch me," Carrie said. The next few minutes were case. Security arrived, more lawyers appeared, someone was shouting about contempt of court, someone else was threatening malpractice suits. Through it all, I held Eleanor. I did not let her go, not for a second. And then, cutting through the noise like a knife, I heard a voice I would have recognized anywhere. "Sorry I am late, little sister. Traffic was hell." "Tom." My brother stood in the doorway in civilian clothes, carrying a briefcase. He looked exhausted and furious and absolutely ready for war. "Also," he added, stepping into the room, "I had to stop by the FBI field office." He smiled. "But do not worry, I brought reinforcements." The chaos in the delivery room stopped. Everyone, Richard, the police officers, the attorneys, froze as Tom walked past them without a second glance. He came to my bedside and looked down at Eleanor, his expression softening. "She is beautiful," he said. "She looks like Mom." "Tom," I whispered. "How did you know? Carrie called me when you went into labor." He looked up, his jaw tightening. "I was already on my way back. I caught a military transport from Germany, landed 4 hours ago." He reached into his briefcase. "And I did not come empty-handed." What he pulled out changed everything. Files, dozens of them, financial records, email printouts, photographs, bank statements from accounts I had never heard of. Evidence of a conspiracy so elaborate that even I, who had lived through it, could barely comprehend its scope. "I have been investigating Richard for 2 years," Tom said. He spoke loudly enough for everyone in the room to hear. "Ever since Maggie mentioned the strange documents, he kept asking her to sign. I have military intelligence connections that go back 15 years, and I have been very, very patient." He handed one folder to the nearest police officer. "This is proof that Richard Thornton has been running a securities fraud operation for over a decade. Shell companies in the Caymans, money laundering through real estate developments, bribery of federal officials." Tom pulled out another folder. "This is proof that my sister was deliberately set up as the fall guy. Emails between Richard and Victoria Sinclair discussing exactly how to make Maggie look guilty while protecting themselves." Richard's face had gone white. "That is impossible," he said. "Those records are sealed. Protected. You could not possibly." "I am military intelligence," Tom interrupted. His voice was cold, hard. The voice of a man who had spent 2 decades hunting people far more dangerous than Richard Thornton. "Did you really think I would let my little sister marry someone without doing my due diligence?" He smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. I have been watching you since the wedding, Richard. Every suspicious transaction, every offshore account, every late-night meeting with Victoria Sinclair. I have documentation of all of it. Tom handed a third folder to the police officer. And this, he said, is evidence that Amanda Cole did not commit suicide. What? Richard breathed. The coroner's preliminary findings show marks consistent with strangulation, Tom continued. She was dead before the drugs entered her system. Someone killed her and staged it to look like an overdose. He turned to face Richard directly. Funny thing about the funeral home that was supposed to handle her body, it is owned by a company that traces back to the Thornton Family Trust. They were going to cremate her before anyone could do a full autopsy. The police officer was reading through the files, his expression growing more alarmed by the second. "Mr. Thornton," he said slowly, "I think you need to come with us." "This is ridiculous," Richard sputtered. "This is obviously fabricated. My wife's brother has a personal vendetta." Jessica pushed through the doorway. She had changed into court attire, her prosecutor badge prominently displayed. "Actually," she said, "it is very much not fabricated. I am Assistant District Attorney Jessica Parker. I have been building a case against Thornton Development for 11 months. Everything Colonel Westbrook has provided corroborates our investigation." She held up her own folder. "I have arrest warrants for Richard James Thornton III and Victoria Sinclair. Securities fraud, money laundering, conspiracy to commit murder." She paused. "And I have an emergency motion to vacate all custody orders pending a full investigation into the fraud perpetrated against Margaret Westbrook. Judge Patterson signed it 20 minutes ago." Richard took a step backward. His face had moved past white into something almost gray. "You cannot do this," he said. "Do you know who I am? Do you know how much money?" "Money does not protect murderers," Tom said quietly. "Not when the evidence is this clear." Richard looked around the room, at the police officers studying Tom's files, at Jessica with her arrest warrants, at me, still holding our daughter surrounded by people who had chosen to fight for me. For the first time since I had known him, Richard looked afraid. "Victoria," he said suddenly. "Victoria did it. All of it. She planned everything. I was just—" Jessica held up her hand. "Mr. Thornton, you have the right to remain silent. I strongly suggest you exercise it." The police officers moved forward. Richard did not resist as they put him in handcuffs. He seemed to have collapsed inward, all his confidence and arrogance draining away like water. They led him out of the delivery room without another word. When he was gone, when the door had closed behind him, I finally let myself breathe. "Is it over?" I asked. My voice cracked. "Is it really over?" Tom sat on the edge of my bed. His expression was gentle now, all the hardness gone. "It is really over," he said. "Richard is going to prison. Victoria is being arrested as we speak. You are safe, Maggie, both of you." I looked down at Eleanor, still cradled against my chest. She had slept through the entire confrontation, peaceful, unaware of the storm that had raged around her birth. "I did not know," I whispered. "I did not know you were watching him. All this time I thought I was alone." "You were never alone," Tom said. "Mom asked me to look out for you before she died. I promised her I would. I just wish I had moved faster. Wish I had gotten you out before." His voice broke. "I am sorry, Maggie. I am so sorry you had to go through all of this." I reached out and took his hand. "You saved us," I said. "You and Carrie and Jessica and Helen, even Amanda, who I barely knew. You all saved us." I looked around the room at the women who had become my army, my sisterhood, my found family. "I spent years believing I had to shrink myself to be loved," I said quietly. "I gave up my career, my friends, my sense of self, because Richard made me believe that was what love required." I held Eleanor closer. "But this," I continued, "what you all did for me, this is what love really looks like. Not possession, not control, not making someone smaller to make yourself feel bigger." I met each of their eyes in turn. Real love shows up. Real love fights. Real love does not ask you to disappear. Carrie was crying. Helen was crying. Even Jessica, the unshakable prosecutor, had tears in her eyes. Tom squeezed my hand. "Mom would be proud of you," he said. "So proud." I smiled through my own tears. She would be proud of you too, I told him. Her overprotective son, who never could stop trying to save people. Tom laughed. It was the first genuine laugh I had heard from him in years. It is a character flaw, he admitted. I am working on it. Eleanor stirred in my arms. She opened her eyes and looked up at me, and for just a moment, I could have sworn she smiled. Welcome to the world, baby girl, I whispered to her. It is not always kind. It is not always fair. But there are good people in it. People who will fight for you. People who will love you exactly as you are. She yawned and closed her eyes again. And I am going to make sure you know that, I promised her. Every single day. 6 months later, I stood in a courtroom and watched Richard Thornton be sentenced to 25 years in federal prison. He looked different than he had on our wedding day. Thinner, older. The expensive suits had been replaced by an orange jumpsuit. The charming smile had been replaced by something bitter and broken. 23 counts of securities fraud, 12 counts of money laundering, conspiracy to commit murder, obstruction of justice. The evidence Tom had gathered was devastating. Emails between Richard and Victoria planning every detail of their scheme. Financial records showing exactly where the money had gone. Testimony from former employees who had been too afraid to speak up until they saw their boss in handcuffs. And at the center of it all, my name. On documents I had signed in trust. In a marriage I had believed was real. The judge read the sentence without emotion. Professional, final. Mr. Thornton, you have shown a callous disregard for the law, for the people who trusted you, and most especially for your wife, whose life and freedom you attempted to destroy for your own financial gain. The court sentences you to 25 years in federal prison. Richard did not look at me as they led him away. He kept his eyes fixed straight ahead, as if by not acknowledging my presence he could pretend I did not exist. That was fine. I did not need his acknowledgement. I had something better. I had my daughter. I had my freedom. I had myself. Victoria's sentencing came 2 weeks later. 15 years for attempted murder, fraud, and conspiracy. She cried on the stand. She blamed Richard. She blamed her childhood. She blamed everyone except herself. The judge was unimpressed. Miss Sinclair, you deliberately pushed a pregnant woman toward an open fire. You participated in a scheme to frame an innocent woman for crimes she did not commit. You showed no remorse until you were caught and no concern for anyone except yourself. Victoria sobbed louder. The court sentences you to 15 years in federal prison. I did not stay to watch them take her away. I had somewhere more important to be. The custody hearing took 3 hours. I sat at the plaintiff's table with Jessica beside me. Tom was in the gallery, Eleanor in his arms. Carrie was there. Helen was there. An entire row of women who had shown up to support me. The evidence was overwhelming. Medical records documenting my abuse. Financial records proving I had been set up. Testimony from Dr. Harrison at Pinehurst, who had come forward after Richard's arrest to admit he had been pressured to commit me. And most importantly, the full recording of Victoria's confession. Not the one from Amanda's phone. That was still lost. But it turned out there were cameras in the Pinehurst common room. Security footage that no one had thought to erase. Footage that clearly showed Victoria sitting beside me, describing exactly how she and Richard had planned everything. Tom had found it. Of course he had. The judge listened to everything. Then she looked at me. Mrs. Westbrook, she said, I have rarely seen a case of such systematic abuse and manipulation. Your husband and his accomplice conspired to destroy your life, steal your child, and frame you for their crimes. That they failed is a testament to your strength and the loyalty of your friends and family. She folded her hands. This court finds that Richard Thornton posed a clear and present danger to his child and engaged in a systematic campaign of abuse against his wife. Full custody is awarded to Margaret Westbrook. Richard Thornton's parental rights are terminated. I heard the words, but they did not feel real at first. Terminated. His rights were terminated. He would never be able to take Eleanor from me, never be able to use her as leverage, never be able to hurt us again. Additionally, the judge continued, the court awards full ownership of marital assets to Mrs. Westbrook, given the evidence of fraud perpetrated against her. And the court strongly recommends that the State Bar Association review the conduct of the attorneys who participated in the illegal commitment and custody proceedings. Jessica squeezed my hand under the table. "We won," she whispered. I could not speak. Tears were streaming down my face, and for the first time in longer than I could remember, they were tears of joy. After the hearing, I walked out of the courthouse into bright sunshine. Tom was waiting with Eleanor, who was 6 months old now, and fascinated by everything around her. She reached for me the moment she saw me, and I took her in my arms and held her close. "It is over, baby girl," I whispered into her soft hair. "It is really, really over." She gurgled happily, completely unaware of what had just happened, what we had just won. 1 year later, I stood on the porch of my new house and watched my daughter take her first steps across the lawn. The house was not large. 3 bedrooms, a big backyard, a kitchen, where morning light pooled in golden puddles on the floor. Nothing like the Thornton estate with its marble floors and empty rooms. It was perfect. "Come on, Eleanor," I called. "You can do it, baby girl." She wobbled forward, arms outstretched for balance, her face scrunched in concentration. 1 step, 2, 3. Then she tumbled onto her bottom and laughed like it was the funniest thing that had ever happened. I scooped her up and covered her face with kisses. "You did it," I told her. "You walked. I am so proud of you." She babbled something that might have been mama and grabbed a fistful of my hair. Behind me, I heard the door open. Tom came out carrying 2 mugs of coffee. He handed me one and stood beside me, watching Eleanor examine a leaf she had found in the grass. "She has your stubbornness," he observed. "Thank God," I replied. We stood in comfortable silence for a moment. Tom had moved closer after everything happened. Not into my house, but nearby. Close enough to help. Close enough to be the Uncle Eleanor deserved. He handed me an envelope. "Final sentencing report," he said. "Richard got 25 years. Victoria got 15. No chance of parole for either of them for at least a decade." I opened the envelope and read through the details. The dry legal language that described the destruction of 2 people who had tried to destroy me. I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not triumph, not even relief, just peace. "It is really over," I said. "It is really over," Tom confirmed. Eleanor toddled back toward us, holding up her leaf like a trophy. I picked her up and settled her on my hip. "Carrie stopped by earlier," I told Tom. "Eleanor's checkup went perfectly. She is healthy and happy, and exactly where she should be developmentally." "That is good," Tom said. "And the foundation? How is that going?" "The Eleanor Foundation. It had been Helen's idea originally. A way to channel everything I had learned into helping other women. We officially launched 3 months ago. Legal resources for women in abusive marriages. Support groups for survivors of gaslighting and financial abuse. A hotline staffed by volunteers who had been through it themselves." "Good," I said. "Growing. We have helped over 100 women already. Mom would be proud," Tom said quietly. "I know." I looked down at Eleanor, who was trying to eat her leaf. That is why I named it after her. After both of them. That night, after Eleanor was asleep, I sat on my porch and watched the sunset. The sky was painted in shades of orange and pink, beautiful and fleeting. Somewhere in a federal prison, Richard was watching the same sunset through barred windows. Victoria was doing the same. I tried to feel something about that. Satisfaction, maybe, or vindication. But the truth was, I had stopped thinking about them months ago. They had stolen years of my life. I was not going to give them another second. Instead, I thought about the woman I used to be. The woman who nodded and smiled, who performed happiness instead of feeling it, who folded receipts for another woman's jewelry and told herself she would deal with it later. That woman was gone now. In her place was someone new, someone forged in fire and betrayal, someone who had walked through the worst and come out the other side. If I could tell my younger self one thing, it would be this. Love is not supposed to make you smaller. If someone's love requires you to shrink, to silence yourself, to disappear, that is not love. That is a cage with a pretty name. Real love lifts you up. Real love celebrates who you are. Real love does not ask you to choose between yourself and being loved. I know that now. It took nearly losing everything to learn it, but I know it, and my daughter will know it too. Every single day of her life, she will know that she is worthy of real love. That she never has to make herself less to make someone else comfortable. That her voice matters. That her truth matters. that she matters. That is my promise to her. That is my promise to myself. Eleanor stirred on the baby monitor. A soft sound, not quite crying, just a reminder that she was there, that she was real. I went inside to check on her. She was lying in her crib, eyes open, watching the mobile spin slowly above her head. When she saw me, she smiled. That pure, uncomplicated smile that babies give to the people they trust completely. I picked her up and held her against my heart. I love you, I whispered, more than anything in this world. She snuggled closer, her tiny fingers curling around a strand of my hair. And I stood there in the dark nursery, holding my daughter, feeling her heartbeat against my chest. Grateful, safe, free. They tried to burn me. They tried to erase me. They tried to take everything I loved. But here is what they did not understand. Fire does not always destroy. Sometimes it forges. And I was forged into something they never expected. A mother who would walk through flames for her daughter. A woman who finally remembered her own worth. And someone who would never, ever shrink herself for anyone again.